Hi everyone. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to share my personal experience with what can happen if you don't pay your taxes. This is a situation I found myself in a few years ago, and trust me, it's not something you want to go through. Background. A little background first. A few years ago, I was self-employed and working as a freelancer. I was making decent money, but I'll be honest, I was a bit disorganized when it came to keeping track of my finances and taxes. I knew I was supposed to be setting aside money for taxes, but I didn't really have a system in place, and I kept putting it off. The problem begins. Fast forward to tax season, and I realized I hadn't paid any estimated taxes for the previous year. I panicked a bit, but I figured I'd just pay what I owed when I filed my tax return. Well, that turned out to be a big mistake. When I finally got around to filing my taxes, I owed the IRS a significant amount of money. We're talking 5 figures. And since I hadn't paid anything throughout the year, I also owed penalties and interest on top of the actual tax bill. At first, I tried to negotiate with the IRS, but they weren't really interested in working with me. They wanted their money, and they wanted it now. So, I set up a payment plan, thinking I could slowly chip away at the debt over time. The consequences. But that's when things really started to spiral out of control. Even though I was making payments, the penalties and interest kept accruing, and the debt just kept growing. It felt like I was trying to fill a bottomless pit. And then the IRS started getting more aggressive. First, they placed a lien on my bank accounts, which meant they could essentially freeze them and take any money that was deposited. This made it really difficult for me to operate my business and pay my bills. Next, they started garnishing my wages. Even though I was self-employed, they were able to intercept payments from my clients and take a portion of that money to pay off my debt. And if that wasn't bad enough, they also threatened to revoke my passport, which would have made it impossible for me to travel for work or pleasure. At this point, I was completely overwhelmed. The debt seemed insurmountable, and I felt like I was constantly looking over my shoulder, waiting for the next shoe to drop. The resolution. Finally, after a couple of years of struggling, I decided to seek professional help. I hired a tax attorney who specialized in dealing with the IRS. The attorney was able to negotiate with the IRS on my behalf, and we eventually worked out a settlement agreement. Essentially, the IRS agreed to accept a lump sum payment that was significantly less than what I owed, in exchange for clearing the rest of the debt. Now, this wasn't an easy or cheap solution. The lump sum payment was still a substantial amount of money, and I had to take out a loan to cover it. But at least I could see the light at the end of the tunnel. Once the settlement was paid, the IRS released the lien on my bank accounts, stopped garnishing my wages, and cleared the debt from my record. It was such a relief to finally have that weight lifted off my shoulders. But let me tell you, the whole experience was incredibly stressful and damaging, both emotionally and financially. Not only did I have to deal with the constant anxiety and stress of being in debt to the IRS, but it also took a toll on my business and my personal life. I lost clients because of the instability and uncertainty, and it put a strain on my relationships with friends and family. Lessons learned. So, what did I learn from this experience? First and foremost, never, ever ignore your tax obligations. The IRS is not an organization you want to mess with. They have immense power, and they're not afraid to use it. Secondly, if you do find yourself in a difficult situation with the IRS, don't try to handle it alone. Seek professional help from a tax attorney or a certified public accountant who knows the ins and outs of the system. And finally, be proactive about your taxes. Set aside money throughout the year, keep meticulous records, and file your taxes on time. It might seem like a hassle, but trust me, it's a lot less hassle than dealing with the consequences of not paying your taxes. Conclusion. So, there you have it, folks. My cautionary tale about what can happen when you don't pay your taxes. It's not a fun experience, and it's one that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. If you found this video helpful or informative, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel for more content like this. And if you have any questions or your own tax horror stories to share, leave them in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.